Hello YouTube. Let's talk about driving sim rigs, shall we? Pretending to drive some exotic car around a virtual course or circuit. Like anything, I guess. The more realistic the experience, the more immersion comes with it, and ultimately the better driving experience. The reality of this, everything comes at a premium cost. Most normal people will be put off after seeing the costs involved in buying such a setup. Then there are the dedicated few who would set about building their own setup. I am in this minority group of people. I have no real skills, and I've never really done anything like this before. Sure, I can use a hammer, I can use a bandsaw, and if I can do this, then you can too. First, I had to have a look for inspiration online. I found something very beautiful, but it's out of my league for sure. It's a precision build. It's obviously been built by somebody who knows what they're doing. Unfortunately, that person just isn't me. So I continue to look for something a little bit more attainable. The second sim rig I came across is certainly doable. It's a simpler design, and it doesn't look that bad either. The best thing with this sim rig is that the building instructions are available online. I'll link them in the video description. The third picture is me when I was out walking the dog. I happened to come across a dumped steering wheel. Trying to be funny, I thought I'd include it here. Back to topic. I've included a few photos of my finished sim rig. I say finished, but like modifying any real car, you're never really finished. There's always something to improve or something to upgrade. We begin our journey with my very earliest iteration of my sim rig, then moving forward through all the iterations until we arrive at how it looks like in the present day. But first, a message from our sponsor. Nah, only joking. I'm certainly not big time just yet. Maybe a little bit like toy time. So here we go. The first component needed for any sim rig is a seat. Rather than buying an expensive gaming chair, I decided that I wanted a real car seat. I asked my friend Oliver, who is himself a motoring legend, and he said he would look in the scrapyard for me the next time he was down there. Literally, a couple of days later, he arrived to me with this car seat. Apparently, it's a passenger seat out of some Peugeot. He didn't even want any money for it, although I did buy him some scratch cards as a thank you. So a big thank you to Oliver and a shout out to Posty's Garage in Dunlow. My basic sim rig design went something like this. As I am myself 6 foot 6 inches tall, I wanted something that wasn't difficult for me to get my legs into, but equally a good strong supportive design. I decided to make a series of triangles because these make up a solid structure. My design later morphed into this design for a little more added strength. I started building my sim rig in the kitchen using nothing more than a pile of scrap wood from my garage. I wasn't even sure how I was going to connect these pieces of wood together. Less complicated is always better, I thought, so I purchased some metal wall plates from the local hardware store for €2 each. These are basically lengths of metal with 32 pairs of holes in them. I cut these down into smaller segments using an angle grinder, but equally it could have been done using a hacksaw. At this point, I hadn't even began to think about screens. I was happy enough for my sim rig to butt up against an old wooden table for now, with a raised piece of wood on the top and running all of my monitor cables underneath. I would get this part done first, I thought, then I'd go from there. Power tools would have been a helpful addition for the construction of my sim rig. However, my drill battery was fluked, so I was forced to use hand tools at times. Using a socket wrench with a socket large enough for a screwdriver bit or even a drill bit got me over this hurdle. Initially, I constructed my sim rig with no floor in itself. Upon testing, I found the pedals kept moving around, so I had to add a thin piece of wood to the floor of the sim rig, to which I could then screw the pedals into place to prevent any movement. Mounting the steering wheel was a little more complicated than you may imagine. The steering wheel itself is heavy and awkward to try and find a correct position, especially if you're trying to do it on your own. Luckily, I had a radiator and a few pieces of spare wood to help me find exactly where I wanted it to go. Some tape and a smaller block of wood worked well to support the board as I experimented to find the ideal height. And with that, Simrig version 1.0 was completed. Apologies for the lack of any motoring sounds. As you can see, I'm currently only getting in-game sound through my own headphones. Don't worry, I won't leave this footage rolling for very much longer. How did I get interested and then inspired to start doing any of this, you may ask? One man named Ben, aka the Kame Trick, here on YouTube. He's a really genuine and nice guy, truly inspirational and very helpful as well. I can recommend that you subscribe to his channel. Without Ben, I wouldn't have done any of this. Thanks, Ben. New items in version 1.1 include the addition of a mousepad support and a keyboard tray, rewiring of the headphones, and a new illuminating but cheap Chinese keyboard. This was a fairly minor iteration, but it was extremely needed. There was nothing worse than struggling to reach the keyboard or mouse. For the keyboard tray, I literally screwed two pieces of wood either side under the steering wheel's tabletop and cut a piece of wood to fit under there. The mouse support was a little more tricky, but I'm delighted how it all worked out. New items in version 1.2 include a brand new SSH gear shifter, an eBay handbrake, second-hand T3PA Pro pedals. I also deconstructed the T300RS's steering wheel, removing the gear shifter paddles. They always seemed to be getting in the way anyway, and now I had a dedicated gear shifter. I didn't think that I would need them. The handbrake itself needed lengthening, so I found an old piece of copper pipe and I cut a small notch in the bottom. I put a screw through the pipe to secure it to the handbrake. Version 1.3 of my sim rig was a fairly major upgrade. It only included one new item, that was a brand new monitor stand from SimLabs. Admittedly, this was expensive, but it did allow me to remove the tabletop that the monitors used to reside on. New in version 1.4, some cheap self-adhesive LED lighting to shine down and illuminate my foot pedals. Thanks to my friend Terence, who donated me an old sound bar that he didn't have any further uses for. I can now choose to use either the sound bar or my headphones via an audio Y-splitter for in-game sounds. At this point, my biggest niggle that I had with my sim rig was that the PC running it was housed within my server cabinet. This was a real pain for hardware upgrades, so I decided to build a freestanding wooden addition onto the rear of my sim rig. It would be much tidier and allow much easier access to the PC itself. And then came the thing that I've been putting off and putting off, painting the damn sim rig, removing all of the computer wiring and hardware, then disassembling the sim rig, taking it out to the garage, painting it with a first coat, allowing it time to dry. Note, gloss paint is not advised, and of course that's what I decided to use. Then giving it a second coat of paint, allowing that time to dry, before finally bringing it all back inside and rebuilding it. Finding out then, in the rebuild process, that I've now got black gloss paint on my hands and on the flooring, because it hadn't dried properly even after a week. Lol, we live and learn. Bargain deals on eBay. 3 23-inch widescreen Dell monitors for €75? Possibly not my final monitors, but certainly a lot bigger and better than using my old square 17-inch monitors. And the deal was done. Simrig button boxes. Like everything Simrig related, these aren't cheap. I've found a USB mini keypad with 8 buttons and reconfigured it to act like a button box, primarily used for resetting my gaming session or teleporting back to the pit. I've got some more unused buttons, which I'll be able to configure for future use. Price was very reasonable. It shows that you can build a Simrig even on a tight budget. How much did this all cost, I can hear you ask? And that would be a very good question. In terms of the computer that I'm using to power the Simrig, it's an old PC that I built about 5 years ago. I will be looking to upgrade that in the very near future. Total cost of that PC was around €360. In terms of the Simrig itself, excluding the PC, so basically everything else, total cost has just tipped over €1,000 and is currently around about €1,050. I'll put the costs up on the screen for you now. I know that the thumbnail for this video states for cheap, and €1,000 isn't exactly a small amount of money, but I guess it's relatively for cheap considering the prices of pre-built Simrigs. Well, I guess I've covered pretty much everything now. Feel free to ask me any questions in the comments section and I'll be happy to answer them. If you like my video, can you kindly please click the like button here on YouTube? It genuinely helps me out. And as always, YouTube, I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for watching. Here are the purchases I made from eBay for my Simrig, just in case you thought I was underestimating the prices. Testing. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. What comes next? 4, 5, 6. What's worse than that? 7, because he ate 9. Oh my gosh.